Hey folks, it's Keith, Victor Echo 3 Sierra Victor Quebec, also known as the Shaky Key, back with another video aimed again at those newer Morse code operators and offering some advice, suggestions. Some of this may work for you, some of it may not, but interesting stuff just the same. So, what I want to look at today is what happens after you make those first one or two contacts. In other words, you've got your license. You're able to practice Morse code. You've passed whatever exams the government body in your area insists on. You've taken courses. And of course, you made that first contact. Now, I think everyone who does Morse code will admit that first contact is pretty important. But it's also one that builds up a lot of drama. So they put an awful lot of pressure on students. Not every organization, but that's just a general summary. So there's this big buildup to that first contact. And of course, in this case, if you're listening, you made that first contact. You may have made two or three others as well. So you've got that under your belt. You know what it's like. You've enjoyed or didn't enjoy all the tension, the drama around it, and so on. So what is going to happen next? And that's really what I want to look at today because I've been there not that long ago myself. Now, I'm not for someone for that type of drama, so I never asked anybody to arrange, to set up a, Morse code contact and blah, blah, blah. I just went on the air. All right. So everyone to their own thing. For a lot of people, having the club or organization who's teaching you help you to make that first contact, that's a good first step. That's very positive. And yes, I know, all the congratulations after. But what happens after that? Because now you've made those contacts. You either had a good time making them, or like most of us, you were nervous and probably scared stiff and probably made all sorts of mistakes. How do you interpret that? Right? That's an important point. So there's this letdown after you've made that first contact, or even maybe the first two or three, depending on how it's being set up for you. There's a letdown. The drama is over. You've done it. And now it's up to you. So what do you do so that a year, 2 years, 10 years from now, you're still on the air? So that's what I want to look at today is just offer some suggestions, some that worked for me, some that others have told me that they've gotten involved in and done. So it's just to help you into that second phase, right? The first phase is getting there, getting on the air. The second phase is staying on the air. So that's what I want to look at today. You've made that contact, and now it's, whew, what next? Now, step number one, look at what your club has to offer, right? Because a lot of the clubs, a lot of the teaching organizations will have more advanced courses. So they may very well ask you, would you like to go into whichever course they offer? A little bit more advanced. Maybe you learn at a faster pace. Maybe you review certain things. All sorts of different issues. So it's up to the club to actually do this. Now, in many cases, they can't. They don't have the time. Remember, clubs are generally run, at least in ham radio, are generally run by volunteers. There's only so many hours a week that volunteers can put in. So if your club doesn't come to you and say, well, congratulations for getting on the air and doing this, this, and this, how about you move up into whatever class we offer and we'll continue with you and we'll work with you and try and get you even better. They may not. So who's the onus on? It's on you. Know what your club or organization offers. Never be afraid to take another course because in reality, and certainly I found it in Morse code, you're always learning. You never stop learning. So what you think you know now, you take a couple more courses and you're going, I didn't know that. So a good idea is to look at what your organization offers, and that's probably going to be my very first one. Look at it. And if you're an organization out there, how do you address this? How do you follow up with your students who have graduated and offer them more courses? Or maybe simply call them up and say, Hey, how's it going? Are you still on the air? Are you making contacts? You might be surprised at how many aren't, because there is that letdown. And when everything falls on that ex-student's shoulders, a lot of people won't continue. So it's almost like you need someone called a Morse code ambassador. Although how that would ever work with a larger organization is beyond me. It's a lot of work to follow up with everybody. And no, emails don't work. Believe me. I'm in sales. I've been in real estate sales for 21 years. Sending someone an email, nah, you'll never get the truth. Talk to them, video, on the phone. You'll get much more information. Anyway, so there's your very first suggestion. See what courses are available, maybe with a different organization. It doesn't have to be the one that taught you. But there are lots of organizations out there doing different courses. Explore them. No one organization has a monopoly on perfection. Try others, try other courses. I think that's one way to keep motivated, because you're always learning. Different instructors will teach you different things. So I think that's a good point to think about. And for the clubs out there, that simple follow-up will really show you how effective your teaching methods are. Where are these students now, a year later, 6 months later? Are they on the air, or did they give it a quick fling and drop? There's always going to be, attrition and what have you. I mean, there's always going to be some issues why students don't continue. But it's interesting to know. It's just, I used to say in a blog I used to do, a political blog, inquiring minds want to know. Anyways, those are the type of things. How many students out there are now suffering from key fright and afraid to actually go on the air and contact people? And that's a very real issue. I know I certainly had it, and still do to an extent. After all this time, there are still times I'll say, yeah, do I want to contact that guy or not? Right? So you got to overcome different things, and sometimes it's that little voice saying to you, well, we could help you by doing this, this, and this, or have you tried this? Anyways, that's my mini rant for the day. Number two, and one that worked really well for me, is come up with a method or a system that encourages you to get on the air. Mine was a very simple one, and I'll show you the chart in a minute. Now that works very well for me, because staring at that, it's at my workbench, which is also where my radio is. I look at that. Anytime I look at my computer monitor, I can see that. And the number of days when I didn't want to go on the air and staring at that one contact per day. And I'll sort of sigh and maybe tune in POTA and pick up a station. I always like to look for the operators who are struggling a little and maybe make one or two contacts. And that has got me more contacts than I would ever imagine possible. Simple little chart. But when you stare at that every day, sometimes several hours a day, in my case, could be 8 hours a day. It's my motivator to get on the air. And of course, the more contacts you make, the more relaxed you become, the more fun it becomes. So find ways to motivate yourself to certainly make that first contact on a given day. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be some poor activator sitting in a park struggling away in Morse code, and you're going to be one of their contacts, and maybe get them the 10 that they, over the hump there, get them the 10th contact that they need. So it's a good motivator for you, and of course, you're helping other people out at the same time. So I say number 3, or point 3, step 3, whatever you want to call it. Don't worry about calling CQ. Part of the myth about getting on the air, or the drama, is that sooner or later you're going to have to call CQ. Do you really? No, you don't have to. If you're doing parks on the air, you can hunt for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parks without ever having to call CQ. I mean, I did that in single sideband when I was looking for DXCC. I think I had 128 DX countries. I never called CQ once, but I answered a lot of CQs. So just answering, time after time after time, it's going to relax you. And yes, eventually you may decide you're going to try some CQ calls. Does this mean you have to have, hour-long rag chews? Not at all. You can go to one of the organizations and, SKC, FIS, CWAPS, whatever, and do some of their events where it's a very standard exchange. So there's lots of ways of getting used to getting on the air and getting comfortable on the air. Down the road, I suspect you probably will take that leap. But the first step, no, you don't have to. Get on the air and have fun. I guess now point number 4 is somewhat along the same lines as other information I've given. Look for an organization that will offer you the opportunity to advance, the opportunity to practice, the opportunity maybe to chase awards. POTA is an obvious one. Now, I use the straight key. So for me, the two that immediately struck me was the SKCC, Straight Key Century Club, and FIS. I don't use a paddle. I have no interest in using a paddle, but lots of you were trained using a paddle. Look at CW Ops. Look at the events that they run. Look at the K1 USN SST and so on. Look at events that you can go into where you can have a bit of fun, make some contacts, low pressure contacts. Most of this is all low pressure stuff, and get more experience under your belt and get you to relax and actually enjoy the art of sending and receiving Morse code. So there are ways to do this. Point number 5, set some goals for yourself. And that may actually come out of step number 4. So set some goals. So example, if you go into the Straight Key Century Club, the very first award or sort of major award that they have is what they call the Centurion Award. So what is this? Well, this is 100 contacts with 100 different members of that organization. It's a little daunting at first, but you can do it. You've got to put the time in on the air, all sorts of things. You go into the SKC SCED page and you will see, and exactly what I'm talking about, with lots of individuals out there offering, contact me at such and such a frequency. So it makes it easy. They're there. You can even send them a private message and say, hey, I'm about to send you, I'm about to call you. So there's lots of ways to encourage you to make those contacts and take a lot of that pressure away from you. And that's one other way. Set a goal, 100 contacts if you're in the SKCC. It's doable. You'd be surprised how many people have done it. And not in that, we're not talking years, we're talking months. So it's up to you. You have to put the time in, of course. Step number 6, I've sort of touched on before. Do a lot of parks on the air hunting. This gets you used to throwing your call sign out. It gets used to you hearing your call sign come back to you, or maybe only part of your call sign. You look at mine, VE3 SVQ. That is a nasty call sign for anyone to receive, especially if they're using a limited antenna and poor band conditions. So it's not unusual for me to get 5 or 6 requests to resend part of my call. And sometimes all I get from when I first put my call out, I might get VE ? And then, the 3 and then whatever, until they finally realize it's SVQ at the end. And there are a number of occasions where conditions are bad and they still can't get the last part of my call sign, and I might just send, SVQ, 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 and then get the Roger from them. So there's different ways you can do it. There are things you learn to do. You learn, if you've never done single sideband where you've had to break into a pileup, if you're doing parks on the air in Morse code, you're going to learn, you're going to practice all of that. So you're not just learning how to contact someone back and forth, you're learning part of the process of having fun, part of what would be involved in contesting if you ever went that route. So there you go, there's one more. You never have to activate a park, but you can certainly hunt an awful lot of them. Point number 7, look for events every week. You look almost every day, actually. Look for events that you might be interested in going into. Now, I look at a lot of contests. I used to single sideband. Single sideband, I used to be fanatical about contests. I mean, I didn't want to miss one. And I was a bit crazy when it comes to that stuff. So I don't want to go that way in Morse code. But there are some excellent events that you can go in that are low key, low pressure, a little bit of fun. I used the other one the other day, the zombie hunt where it was CQ Boo, CQ Boo, BOO, sort of a Halloween event. A lot of the QRP groups, which are Morse code, they have events that are fun. They're not big pressure ones and so on. Look for some of them. Now, one of the best places to go to find these events is a page that's always up to date, very well maintained, and it's by WA7BNM. And this is a contest calendar page. But it doesn't just have contests on them, there's lots of other events as well. So if you ever want to know what's on a weekend, so in other words, if you looked last weekend prior to going out to activate a park, you may have called it quits because there's one of the biggest Morse code events of the year is on. So it's going to be pretty tough trying to get your 10 contacts. But this is a good one because not all events are held on weekends. Sometimes they're small ones. You've got all those QSO parties that are out there as well. So these are low pressure. Get some in. You have some low pressure so-called contests. The Radio Amateurs of Canada have two excellent ones, especially if you're in the States and that time of the year, maybe certainly for the winter one over in Europe as well. So they have their winter contest and they have their summer contest. Very low pressure. I go in them as much as I can. One, I'm Canadian, so let's support them. But I found over the years, they are fun and you can do well. I think I won the 80-meter one way back, I don't know, 1991, something like that. But I usually do fairly well when I go in them and I don't take it seriously. I'm not in there for the whole length of the contest. I go in to have fun. I go in to give people points. And yes, in Morse code, that was when I actually sat down and called CQ for 3 hours during one of those contests, working out of the headquarters stations for them as a CW operator. So there's lots of things you can do, lots of things you can learn. Look at field days, same thing. If your club is organizing a field day event, maybe you can go help out. Maybe you can be one of their Morse code operators. Lots of different things you can do, which are fun, help other people out as well, get you to meet more people, which is part of it, right? You go into a field day group and there's maybe a dozen other operators there. Many of them you will never have met before. Many of them don't even do Morse code. That doesn't matter. No, you're making friendships and you're having fun, which is what it's all about. Point number 8, change up your key or paddle. Now I use a straight key. So what can I do? I can move up to a bug or a cootie. I can also try and learn how to use the paddle. Have to buy one first, but learn how to use one. If you're using a paddle and that's what you learned on, take a look at using a straight key. There are things you can do that will generate interest for you. And if you're using a straight key, get yourself another one, different style, different type. It's always fun changing them. I've got one up just over my shoulder there. All right, so that became my gift to myself for sticking on the air and sticking with it. So there's things you can do, simple things, trying to learn a paddle, trying to learn a straight key. It keeps you motivated because the thing you don't want to do is just to give up because, I'm bored. Morse code can never be boring. It's up to you not to let it be, but you'll find Morse code is very interesting. Point number 9, look at club activities and go and attend them. Sitting in your desk or sitting at your desk calling CQ or answering CQs is one thing. Why not go meet people who do it? So if your club is having a monthly event, drop into that event, meet other people. You may meet Morse code operators that you've actually spoken to on the air and had no idea they were a member of that club. Plus, the clubs offer various activities. I'm thinking right now of one that is growing in importance. The emergency activities, the activities that they do around emergency events and so on, and the training they do. So there's another good way to try and get more contacts within the club, get better known, meet more people, open your eyes, have fun, attend some of the club events that they do. And number 10, the one that I like the best, help other new operators. You know, this whole video series, this is part of my number 10, helping other new operators to get on the air in the first place, get through their Morse code learning experience, and get on the air and have fun. I do the same thing virtually every day. I'm going to say probably 6 or 7 days a week. I will do it, and I'll show you what I mean. Because I like to help people out. And sometimes, many times, as a matter of fact, many times, it's actually that operator's very first contact. So I have a number of people, I have a number of QSL cards from people where I was their very first contact. And that's very satisfying to know that you helped somebody get over that hump and get on the air. And in some cases, we've spoken many times since then, since that first contact, and not just events in Morse code, but sometimes had fairly long chats either by email or in the SKCC we can do it by private notes and so on. So yes, help other people. Be a mentor for some. Don't be afraid to offer your services to help people to volunteer. And I'll use the SKCC because that's the one I know the best. There are always operators in there, pretty much any time of the day, and they will put something next to their name, such as QRS. Well, QRS, your speed, all sorts of different things we do, and this is what I usually put beside mine, just so you can see. So try doing that. Try helping other people. It really is a lot of fun. It's very satisfying and very rewarding, and it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost money. It doesn't cost money to be nice and to be helpful. Think about that. Now, if you like this video, you got something out of it, there's one thing that I would really appreciate it if you would do. And you notice in my videos, I don't ask you to take out a Patreon membership. I don't ask you to buy this, that, and the other thing. None of that stuff's not anything I particularly want to do. What I would really appreciate is if you would simply hit like and subscribe. The more subscribers that I get, the more YouTube likes to push my videos out to other newer operators just like you, or people who are searching YouTube for videos on how to learn Morse code or whatever. So I would appreciate if you hit the subscribe button and of course like, and I always love to see the comments down below. It's Keith, Victor Echo 3, Sierra Victor Quebec, the Shaky Key, 73. Have fun on the air.